This video presentation has been produced through the joint cooperation of the following organizations: Washington State Department of Transportation Planning and Programming Service Center, Technology Transfer Center, Washington State Department of Transportation Trans-Aid Service Center, Transportation Improvement Board, Association of Washington Cities, County Road Administration Board, and Northwest Pavement Management Association. Welcome to the Pavement Evaluation Training Session. The importance of the pavement rater's job cannot be overstated. Your assessment of pavement conditions on our roadways will be instrumental in establishing future maintenance priorities and requirements throughout Washington State. Your diligence and dedication to this task will give your pavement management supervisor the quality data upon which sound maintenance decisions and rehabilitation requirements can be based. The purpose of this videotape is to supplement the Pavement Surface Condition Rating Manual and complement the instructions you're receiving from your local agency pavement management supervisor. This videotape will help you become familiar with common pavement defects and roadway safety before you go out onto the road. Session breaks have been provided throughout this videotape, allowing you to ask questions and obtain further clarification. The session breaks also give your instructor an opportunity to elaborate or comment on the material just viewed. Your instructor may deviate from the material presented to take into account local agency uniqueness, emphasis, and needs. Nevertheless, pavement condition rating depends on your ability to accurately assess the following elements: the type of defect, the severity of the defect, and the extent to which the road surface is affected by the defect. To fully appreciate the interrelationships of the rating elements, a basic understanding of the terms wheel path, severity, extent, and segment is essential. Wheel paths, as the term implies, are the paths traveled by vehicles on the roadway. There are 2 wheel paths per traffic lane, or 4 wheel paths on a 2-lane roadway. Severity is the measure of how badly or to what intensity a given defect has deteriorated. Extent is the measure of area, length, or count associated with a given distress. It indicates how much and how far a given defect has progressed. A segment is generally a single block, 1/10 of a mile, 1 mile, or other relatively short unit of roadway. Segment size may vary to meet the objectives of the agency conducting the pavement condition rating. However, all pavement ratings are performed within the context of a segment. The videotape covers pavement defects associated with flexible and rigid pavements. This presentation focuses on the defects associated with flexible pavement first, and then covers rigid pavement defects later on in the program. Flexible pavement can be broken down into 2 broad categories: asphalt concrete pavement, or ACP, and bituminous surface treatment, or BST. The ACP surface appears smooth and dense with varying sizes of aggregate. The BST surface takes on a very rough appearance. Rutting is a surface depression within the wheel path. It's the result of permanent deformation of the pavement or subgrade. Usually the depression reaches its maximum depth in the center of the wheel path. Ruts are measured by laying a 4-foot or longer straight edge across the wheel path and measuring the distance or depth between the straight edge and the pavement at the center of the wheel rut. Take as many measurements as are practical and average them to obtain a final average rut depth. Rut severity is estimated according to the following ranges: low, 1/4 to 1/2 inch; medium, 1/2 to 3/4 inch; high, over 3/4 inch. This template shows the measurement of the extent associated with the defect just viewed. Alligator cracking is associated with loads and usually appears along wheel paths. The stage at which several cracks begin to interconnect is defined as alligator cracking. Eventually, the cracks will form many pieces resembling the pattern of alligator hide. This is an example of low-severity hairline cracking. The cracks are thin and beginning to interconnect. This shows medium-severity spalling. The cracks are wider, fully connected. Edges of the cracks are irregular, with broken pieces showing. The next example is high-severity spalling and pumping. The pattern of cracking is well defined. Cracks are wider with pieces missing, and spalling is very apparent. Visible fine soil particles show in the wide cracks. Longitudinal cracking runs parallel with the roadway centerline. Longitudinal cracks associated with the beginning of alligator cracking are generally discontinuous, broken, and occur in wheel paths. This example shows low-severity longitudinal cracking. The crack is less than 1/4 inch wide. There is little or no spalling along the edges. This example is of medium-severity cracking. Spalling along the edges is still minimal. The cracking is greater than 1/4 inch wide. This is an example of high-severity longitudinal cracking. Cracks are spalled, pieces are visibly missing, and the edges of the cracks are uneven. Transverse cracking runs roughly perpendicular to the roadway centerline. Cracks may extend partially or fully across at least one full wheel path in the rated lane. Shown is an example of low severity, less than 1/4 inch wide crack. No spalling along the edge of the crack has taken place. This example shows medium severity cracks. The cracks are greater than 1/4 inch wide. Spalling along the edges of the cracks is minimal. Next is an example of high severity cracks. Cracks are spalled, pieces of material are missing, and the sides of the cracks are irregular. This sample shows longitudinal and transverse cracking with crack sealing. While the cracks may be sealed with tar, they still have to be rated as low-severity pavement defects. Raveling and weathering are pavement surface deterioration that occurs when aggregate particles are dislodged or raveling, or oxidation causes loss of the asphalt binder, or weathering. The smooth surface begins to appear rough like very coarse sandpaper and looks like a chip seal surface. This is an example of low severity raveling. The aggregate or pavement surface has started to wear away, but the pavement appears only slightly rough. Next is an example of medium severity raveling. A significant amount of aggregate has worn away, and the surface is moderately rough and pitted. This is an example of high severity raveling. The aggregate has worn away, the surface texture is deeply pitted and very rough. Flushing or bleeding is indicated by an excess of bituminous material on the pavement surface. The surface appears shiny and reflective. This is an example of low severity flushing. Minor amounts of wheelpath pavement surface has been covered by excess asphalt material. This is an example of medium severity flushing. Significant amounts of pavement surface have been covered by the excess asphalt material. This shows an example of high severity flushing. The pavement surface is covered by the excess asphalt material. During hot weather, the affected area will appear wet and sticky. In general, patches are smaller than typical rehabilitation in size and scope. They are less than full roadway width and or less than project length. Convention defines a lane with new surfacing as a patch if it is less than a half a mile in length. Chip seal repair. This is an example of low severity patching. It's identified by its nearly straight edges and rough BST surface. Blade repair. This is an example of a medium severity patching. It has edges shaped to the contours of the surrounding pavement, is of variable thickness and smooth texture. Dig out full depth patch. This is an example of high severity patching. This type of patching is constructed by cutting out a portion of the pavement, filling the void with material and paving over. The finished surface will be the same level as the surrounding pavement. Corrugation and waves are regularly occurring transverse undulations in the pavement surface. Corrugations occur as closely spaced ripples. Waves are undulations whose distance from peak to valley is more than 3 feet. The severity of corrugations is defined as the maximum vertical deviation from a 10-foot straight edge placed on the pavement parallel to the center line of the roadway. The level of severity is defined as follows. Low, an 1/8 inch to 2 inches per 10 feet. Medium, 2 inches to 4 inches per 10 feet. And high, over 4 inches per 10 feet. Pavement edge conditions manifest themselves in 3 distinct ways. The first example is of the condition referred as edge raveling. Edge raveling occurs when the pavement edge breaks away from the roadways, usually without curbs or paved shoulders. Edge patching, our second example, is the repair of the edge raveling defect. Our third condition is the lane less than 10 feet distress. This distress indicates that the edge raveling has progressed to the point where the pavement width from the center line to the outer edge of the roadway has been reduced to less than 10 feet. We're going to stop our presentation for a moment and allow time for you to ask questions on the material just covered. Portland cement concrete pavement is a rigid pavement that is usually placed on a bed of gravel or other free-draining material. PCCP, unlike flexible pavement, distributes loads to the subgrade due to its inherent ability to resist bending. This portion of the video will show and describe those defects found in Portland cement concrete pavement. The cracking defects are irregular breaks that may form transversely, longitudinally, or diagonally within a PCC panel. This example shows a low severity defect with one crack per panel. The second example is a medium severity defect with 2 or 3 cracks per panel. The third example is a high severity defect with 4 or more cracks per panel. Spalling occurs when fragments break or chip off along the edges of the pavement joints or cracks. This is an example of low-severity joint and crack spalling. The spalling is between 1/8 to 1 inch in size. Small fragments of pavement have chipped off, giving the appearance of an irregular joint. Shown is an example of medium-severity joint and crack spalling. The spalling is between 1 to 3 inches in size. Fragments of pavement have broken and pieces of aggregate may be lost. This example shows high-severity joint and crack spalling. The spalling is 3 inches or greater. Fragments of pavement have broken off, and there are lost pieces of aggregate. Pumping and blowing refer to the ejection of water from beneath the pavement caused by wheel loadings. The ejected water carries soil particles with it, eroding the pavement foundation. Pumping is recognized by the visible fine soil left on the dried surface of the roadway and/or shoulder area. This is an example of low-severity pumping and blowing. A slight shoulder depression is evident, and there is little or no staining. In this example, medium severity is indicated by the moderate shoulder depression and the obvious staining. This is an example of high severity pumping and blowing. Severe shoulder depressions and/or significant staining characterize this defect. Faulting or settlement occurs when a butting pavement separates vertically through settling or uplifting. The result is a step difference between the adjoining pavement surfaces. Settlement is defined as differences in height across a longitudinal joint or a crack. Usually, faulting will be found as a downward step across a transverse joint or crack in the direction of travel. This example shows low-severity faulting. The faulting or settlement is in the 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch range. This is an example of medium severity faulting. The faulting or settlement is in the 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch range. This example shows a high severity faulting defect. The height difference between panels is over 1/2 inch. Patching is the temporary or semi-permanent replacement of all or part of a PCCP slab with a flexible or rigid material. A new full-size replacement slab is not considered a patch. This example shows low severity patching. Between 1% to 9% of the panel is patched. This is medium severity patching. Approximately 10% to 24% of the panel is patched. This example shows a high severity defect with 25% or more of the PCC panel patched. Pavement scaling is the progressive disintegration of the pavement from the surface downward by the dislodgement of surface particles. In severe cases, the surface is very rough and irregular. This example shows a slight severity defect. The aggregate or binder has started to wear away. The pavement appears aged and slightly rough. This is an example of a medium severity defect. The aggregate or binder has worn away, and the surface texture is a moderately rough and pitted. Loose particles may be present, and fine aggregate partially missing from the surface. This example shows high level of severity. The aggregate has worn away, and the surface texture is deeply pitted and very rough. Aggregate may be missing from the surface. Blow-ups are the upward buckling or shattering of pavement panels at transverse cracks or joints. The occurrence is caused by the expansion of a panel when all available room for expansion has been previously taken and the panel is tightly confined. This is an example of a blow-up. Notice the severe damage to the PCC panel. There are no severity levels associated with this defect. Each occurrence per segment is counted and recorded. This is an example of a blow-up that has been patched. The patch is included in the patching category. Estimate the extent of roadway damage in accordance with the guidelines found in the Pavement Condition Rating Manual, as well as the instructions given to you by your local pavement management supervisor. Good pavement ratings results depend on a rater's ability to properly identify and classify the severity of road defects. Misjudging the severity of road defects will result in an overstatement or understatement of actual pavement deterioration. To obtain the best possible results and minimize visual perception errors of actual road conditions, do the following. Schedule and time the pavement evaluation survey so that, depending on your mode of conveyance, you drive, ride, or walk into the sun whenever possible. This will prevent shadows from hiding cracks in the roadway surface, thereby understating the extent of roadway deterioration. Know the length of your stride, the length of your vehicle, the spacing distance of the centerline markings. These yardsticks will serve you well in approximating the extent of the roadway damage. Conduct the pavement survey only when the pavement is completely dry. Cracks do not dry out as fast as the roadway surface. This gives the illusion of greater damage than actually exists. The information you gather during the pavement evaluation survey is captured on a pavement condition rating sheet. Since each local agency may have its own unique format, the pavement condition rating sheet will not be discussed. Your local agency pavement manager will instruct you on how to complete the form used by your agency during the next session break. Your instructor will also tell you if you are rating the entire roadway or simply the lane you are traveling in, if the extent of road surface damage is to be expressed in terms of percentage or feet per mile segment, meter per kilometer segment, or some other standard. During the pavement evaluation survey, you will be traveling at speeds considerably less than the posted speed limit. This could be hazardous if you don't put safety first. Always wear your seatbelt. Turn on the roof-mounted light bar and make sure its warning lights are operating properly before putting the vehicle in motion. Drive on the shoulder as much as possible to keep from interfering with the normal flow of traffic. Be alert to what goes on around you and drive defensively. Always wear your hard hat and safety vest when you get out of your vehicle. If you are conducting the pavement evaluation survey on bicycle, be sure you wear an approved bicycle helmet and traffic safety vest. Equip your bike with a bike flag to enhance your visibility. Ride on the shoulder with traffic rather than against it. Be aware of your surroundings at all times and ride defensively. If you're conducting a walking survey, stay on the sidewalk or shoulder whenever possible. Venture into the roadway only when traffic conditions allow you to do so safely. Wear your hard hat and traffic safety vest at all times. Remember to stay alert, put safety first, and help make this the safest pavement evaluation survey ever.